The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the cat that got thrown against the wall, that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yep, so so the cat's out of the bag.
Hey!
It's Re-Animator time.
Yeah, it's Re-Animator time. By the way, content warning as all get out. If that wasn't a clue, there will be animal abuse. There will be naked people of many varieties. Let's say that. Blood, guts, gore, it's all the things.
Oh, yeah.
If you're sensitive to any of this stuff, be warned, and just watch out.
Yeah. So we start at Zurich University, and there's I guess it's a nurse and some guards or police officers of some kind, security guards.
Right, like the administrator.
Yeah. And they're pounding on a door, and that door is for Dr. Hans Gruber.
Hans Gruber! Okay, all right, this is my first tangent of the evening. I want you to know that. Because this is not Nakatomi Plaza. This is not Christmas. This is not my Die Hard. Okay?
And it's 3 years before Die Hard, so
exactly. But here's the thing, Anthony. I want you to know that there is a long, proud history of Hans Gruber in cinema.
Okay.
So not only is there one in Die Hard, okay, there's also obviously one in Re-Animator, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out about 20 to 30 years before this, there was another small movie called Our Man Flint, who has Hans Gruber as the main antagonist. I believe he runs a Nazi war camp.
Interesting.
Not only that, in American Horror Story, the Asylum season, there is Hans Gruber, which that's close enough that I'm going to say he's an honorary Gruber. So, I mean, is this a thing? Is this the Alan Smithy of villains?
I guess so.
I don't want my real name known, so I'm Hans Gruber.
Yeah.
What is this?
Well, and this one is, basically just a name. We never really, he's in this first scene very, very briefly, and then is just kind of referred to. But yeah, it's it's strange. I don't know. Maybe it's like the John Smith of German names. I don't know.
Yeah. Listen, if anyone hears this and we get the call out in the void, hunt this down. I want to know every single Hans Gruber in cinema that I have not already found, and TV, any of it.
Yeah,
we're gonna trace this line of Hans Gruber and see if it goes through a Frankenstein somewhere other than here.
Yeah,
but yeah, so they bust down the door,
and yeah, they find that Gruber is laying out, seemingly dead, and you got Dr. Herbert West, Jeffrey Combs, and he is injecting Gruber with something as the guards kind of pull him away. Right,
and of course that's when Dr. Gruber jumps up. He's reanimated. And he's clutching his head.
And his eyes are popping out of his head. And
they're convulsing.
Yeah, it's real creepy. They're beating, they're turning purple, and then they just pop.
Right. And then he finally dies.
Yeah.
For good this time.
Yeah, and so West is oh no, that dose was too large.
Right. But of course he didn't give him death. He gave him life.
Yeah.
as our intro begins. Let me take us on another sidetrack. So obviously this is based on the H.P. Lovecraft short story Herbert West Re-Animator. Re-Animator, or Herbert West Re-Animator, was a serialized short story that H.P. Lovecraft did. And if you don't know about H.P. Lovecraft, just know that he probably actually, let me take out the may not. He was a bad person ultimately, at least, I don't think he did too much about it, but he definitely was vocal about it. Mm-hmm. Xenophobic, didn't like anyone who wasn't Anglo-American or of Anglo descent. And definitely added that to all of his stories pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and this borrows very loosely from that. Oddly enough, the second one that we'll talk about next week will borrow a little bit more. But, we'll get into that whenever I can add it to it.
And, yeah, if you're wondering, like, why are we talking about this on a Frankenstein podcast, like, well, one, like, Lovecraft wrote this as a parody of the Frankenstein story. And then beyond that, Stuart Gordon, who directed this, was trying to come up with what was going to be his first feature film. He'd been, like, directing stage plays. And he was like, there's way too many Dracula and vampire movies out there. Why hasn't anybody done a good Frankenstein movie in a while? And his friend...
He's a Mariuk.
Yeah. And his friend was like, have you read this H.P. Lovecraft story? Because I think you might be able to do something with it. And he hadn't, but he tracked it down and read it and was like, oh, yeah, this is definitely what I'm going for. And so both Lovecraft and Gordon were kind of trying to do something unique with the Frankenstein story. And, they collaborated from distant times and made this film, basically.
But if you couldn't tell because of the parody, this is a black comedy.
Oh,
it's very dark. I mean, a lot of people will be like, no, this is a horror movie. Well, kind of, but it's actually, if you have a dark sense of humor, it's funny.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I would say it's more a comedy with a lot of horror elements than a horror movie with comedic elements.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it's just a very, very gory comedy. So a lot of people would classify that as horror just right out the gate.
Listen, it's definitely cousins with Dead Alive or Brain Dead, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so we have the credits. It's a lot of like just anatomical drawings with like colored screens, and then from
the vaguely psycho music.
Going
on over
the score in this is really great. It's a very unique, weird kind of score that is one that sticks with you. Like as soon as I like put in my copy of the movie and like the menu screen popped up, I was just like, oh yes, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But after the credits end, we get another like location name on the screen, and now we've moved from Zurich to Miskatonic Medical School in Arkham, Massachusetts.
My good old alma mater, Miskatonic U. We're the fighting tentacles, or the fighting cephalopods. I'm sorry, that's what we are. But yeah.
So we cut into like, a pretty familiar scene from like any movie with medical stuff. There's some doctors, they're trying to revive a patient. She doesn't seem to be responding. And you've got like the one doctor who like won't give up. He, keeps kind of pounding away and using the paddles and everything. And finally everyone's like, you got to call it. Like it's, she's not coming back.
Right. So this already kind of sets the tone for the movie. And like a lot of movies, the hero doctor would have either saved the person or there would be some like really like profound reason why they didn't save the patient. And this one, nope, just dead.
Yeah.
They just die.
But we definitely get a sense that like this particular doctor, who we'll learn is Dan Kane, is, he wants to, like, he's in the medical field because he wants to preserve life and extend life, again, like, as, all the Frankenstein things we've talked about. He's very resistant to the idea that people have to die.
Absolutely. Yeah, he doesn't want to accept it, but he's like a pre-Frankenstein, right? He hasn't quite gotten to that limit of where it's like he will do anything in the future.
Yeah.
To see his goals achieved. Now, let's also talk about this. So, not necessarily star-studded exactly, but Dan Kane is played by Bruce Abbott, a fairly prolific actor, mostly in B movies and things like that. Mm-hmm. Then we've got Jeffrey Combs, who is just amazing in everything he does. He's our Herbert West, if you didn't already know.
Yeah, he's like genre film royalty. you know, he's mainly known for this, but I mean, he's also been in Star Trek as like 5 or 6 different characters over the years. Yeah. And one of his more recent things that he's really famous for is he has like a traveling one-man show where he is Edgar Allan Poe. And he like gets drunk over the course of the show, and it's like he just kind of rants and raves, and you can sometimes find like video clips of it around on YouTube and stuff, and you know, I've never seen it live, but it's pretty impressive.
Right, and basically anytime there is an adaptation of a H.P. Lovecraft film, Jeffrey Combs is usually in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, almost exclusively. I don't think I saw him in Color Out of Space, but, you know, that was a relatively new movie. Who knows what happened.
Yeah.
But then we have, arguably, in my opinion, one of the most important actresses in horror movies, and that would be Barbara Crampton as Megan Halsey.
Yes, so, she's amazing, and like she's still around doing great horror movies to this day. Like she usually
Jacob's
has like
Wife.
Yeah, Jacob's Wife that came out a year or two ago is fantastic. And yeah, I mean every year she's usually in 2 or 3 things. Like she kind of had a big comeback with You're Next.
Yeah, 2011. To be fair, she's never really went away.
Yeah, she's just one of those kind of like journeyman actors who's just like always doing stuff. And she's also been in like soap operas and stuff. It's not just horror, but like she's kind of has like a really big horror fan base and does a lot of horror stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean like, you know, I've had a huge crush on her forever. And I think if you like horror movies, you probably have at some point as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she plays Megan Halsey, like you said, who is Dan's girlfriend and the dean's daughter. But we don't meet her quite yet. So, you know, after the patient dies, you know, Dan is kind of sent down to the morgue with her. And that's where he is introduced to the dean and also Herbert West and Dr. Hill, who's going to be one of their like main medical professors.
Yeah, he's going to teach them all about the medicine. Turns out, though, that West and... well, at least West doesn't like Hill. He accuses Hill of plagiarizing everything that Dr. Hans Gruber has previously done. And he tells him as much. And also there's this interesting line about the 6 to 12 minutes, I believe, after brain death is when actual death like occurs or when the consciousness remains.
Yeah, and that kind of becomes like a sticking point as the movie goes on. Like Hill believes that after that window passes that there's no coming back from that, and West thinks that there is.
Right, and we'll find out about that later. So, but at the end of this scene, it's fairly quick, but you do get pretty much how most of these characters will interact and are already interacting.
Yeah.
But Halsey invites Hill over for dinner. They're going to have this grant committee meeting. Apparently, Hill's their big money earner.
Yeah. Then we finally do get to meet Megan. You got Kane and Megan are in the hallway. They're kind of like standing in front of like a board with like a classified board kind of thing where people like tack up notes and stuff. And, you know, Kane's putting up
ago, people used to put their notices on these boards with actual paper. How weird.
It's like Craigslist, but with thumbtacks.
Yeah, pretty much.
And like, so Kane is going to be renting out a room in his place, so he's putting up a little notice on the board, and they're kind of like talking and flirting, and like, you know, they start kind of kissing.
Yeah, then it goes boom, sexy. Or at least lovesy.
Yeah, it's such a great cut too, because he's like, you know, they're kind of being playful, and he's kind of like aggressively kissing her, and she starts kind of like saying no, 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 and then it just cuts to yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
And so there's a sex scene, and once it's over, like she kind of has to leave. She's got to get home to her dad, who, you know, as we said, is the dean, and I don't think he kind of fully knows the extent of their relationship.
Well, in her words, though, Dean Halsey is basically the world's last living Puritan. God, how I wish that was true, but
yeah.
But needless to say, that is not the case, and needless to say, he does not appreciate his daughter being out after hours.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's getting ready to head out, but like they kind of continue to play. Like Dan puts a sheet over his head and is kind of chasing her like he's a ghost.
Gives her a little spook.
Yeah, and then she goes to the door to leave and opens the door, and there's just Herbert West just standing there.
Right.
And it turns out that he saw the notice on the board and he wants to rent the room.
Yeah, this place would be perfect, right?
Yeah.
So effectively, West then gives himself the tour of the house, effectively. and notes how the basement is perfect.
Yeah.
It's great.
And he's like, all right, I'm ready to move in right now. And they're like, are you don't need to like get your stuff, or he's like, here's our money, I'm ready, let's start.
Right. And because Megan has common sense, she immediately goes, Dan, I don't know about this. This guy just shows up, basically says, this is mine now, and he hands you money. And then Dan's like, yes, he is. And he takes the money. And so now Herbert is now moving in.
Yeah. And I think Megan asks, like, I heard you just moved or came from Switzerland. Why'd you leave? And he's like, there was nothing more for me to learn there.
Yeah. Like, this Herbert West backstory seems fascinating. But we'll get more into that a little bit later. Because he's already studied with a renowned doctor. You know? And now he goes to this other medical school. What's the reasoning? Just to finish the degree, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll find out. There's a little bit more to it later, I guess.
So, yeah, then we cut to them in class the next day, and, you got Professor Hill, who is showing them brain surgery. He, they've got, like, a cadaver. He opens the scalp, peels it back, cuts through the skull with a bone saw.
Peels the fascia, yeah.
Yeah, and then just, like, pulls a brain out. And then here he again emphasizes that a brain will only survive 6 to 12 minutes after death.
And as soon as he says that, West just breaks a pencil. He's like, no, it doesn't, but I'm not going to say it out loud. I'm just going to break this pencil.
Yeah,
and that's a great little gag.
Yeah, it's like super passive aggressive. And like, Hill's like, kind of stares at him for a second and then kind of continues to like go on with his lesson. And then like West snaps another pencil.
It's like that's his way of just loudly disagreeing. And of course, Hill's not stupid. He knows what's going on. Yeah. So effectively a fight breaks out between him and West, and they disagree. He's pretty adamant about that 6 to 12 minute window before total death. West, not so much, obviously. They're gonna disagree, and of course, at the very end, Hill leaves with a great note of, I'm going to enjoy failing you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then we cut to dinner, and you got Dean Halsey, Megan, and Professor Hill. And Megan says she's got a study date and has to leave. Then we get like Hill kind of has a really creepy relationship with Megan. And, you kind of like it slowly builds, but here's where you first get the hint of it, where he basically just talks about her like as if the dean can control her. He's like, you shouldn't allow her to be with Dan. Like, she deserves better than this.
Right. She should stay here.
Yeah. And then he gives a toast. He says something like, to the dean's lovely daughter, the obsession of all who know her.
All who know her.
Yeah. Which, yeah. I mean, we know Hill knows her. They're right there. So, like, it's pretty, explicit that he's saying he's obsessed with her.
So obviously, I mean, we're probably not making the age difference that prevalent. She's 20-ish, maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe 20, maybe 21. She might be on the edge. This guy's easily in his 40s.
Yeah, like, probably beyond that even.
Yeah.
And is a peer of her father's, so like that's just it's
that's
creepy.
Another thing is he's a family friend as well. Mm-hmm. So I mean, don't get me wrong. If you have a spouse that is significantly older or younger than you, as long as you all are of legal age, whatever. I'm not gonna harp on it, but it's clear that this guy is creepy.
Yeah, there's definitely predatory stuff here, and like clearly Megan is not interested, and that's the primary problem here. Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, then we go to her study date with Dan, and she's kind of irritable. I think the dinner kind of threw her off, and she doesn't trust West, so she's just kind of feeling out of sorts. And then she realizes that she's not seen Rufus the cat.
Yeah, he's everywhere. Like even earlier, he jumped on Dan as they were making love.
Yeah.
Just to surprise him, just to say, hey, as cats do.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm seeing 4 more shadows. I don't know what's up with that. But they do go looking for the cat.
Yeah, so they're kind of hunting around the house, calling for Rufus and everything. And they split up, covering more ground, and Megan ends up going into West's room. Mm-hmm. And then, for whatever reason, opens the fridge, which I don't know why you would search the fridge, but in this case it works out because, indeed, that's where Rufus is.
Hey, we fridged the cat.
Yep, so we got a dead cat in the fridge, And before, she can really do anything about it, Wes shows up and he walks in and is, indignant that she's gone into his room without permission.
Right. He doesn't exactly defend himself against her accusations that he just outright killed the cat. He's more, why are you in my room?
Yeah. So Dan comes in and they kind of all sort of have a confrontation. And West is like, he was dead when I found him, but you weren't around. I didn't know what to do. So I put him in the fridge so he wouldn't stink up the house.
Right. And of course, good, lovable Dan falls for it.
Yeah.
Oh, we love you, Dan. You big marshmallow.
Yeah. So then we get Dan asks what kind of experiments is Wes performing in the basement? And, he's kind of a little bit antagonistic. I feel like you're up to no good. And West is I think you should leave me alone because I think the dean might be interested to know that you, a student, is sleeping with his daughter.
Yeah. Which nowadays that would probably be yeah, okay. But, whatever.
Yeah, it's some, compared to some of our previous Frankensteins, it's some light blackmail.
Right. Light. Well, it'll get a little bit heavier here in a bit, eventually. But yeah, so I believe at this point, Dan discovers a glowing vial of something.
Yeah.
But what it is, we don't know.
And so he actually, he kind of is woken up in the middle of the night. He hears some screeching, and he kind of goes to Herbert's door and is banging on the door, what's going on? Do you hear this? But he doesn't answer. So he ends up just following the sound downstairs to the lab, and West is already down there actually, and he is fighting with Rufus, the no longer dead cat.
Yeah, the reanimated cat, if you will.
And this scene is, this is just one of those great low budget movie making things. This cat is clearly a semi-mechanical so that it's moving a little bit, but it's just kind of attached to Jeffrey Combs' back, and it's all physical comedy. He's rolling around and he sells it so great. Well. It's fantastic.
If you didn't know this was a comedy before, now.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And the cat, they kind of throw the cat around, it attacks both of them, and but ultimately they end up killing the cat again.
Right. They just slam it against the wall. Dan does specifically.
Yeah. And so now they've got the cat on the table, and it's just this mangled mess of blood and bones sticking out, and it is
meat.
Very, very dead at this point.
Yeah.
Dan is still skeptical. He's what's going on down here? And Herbert's I reanimated this dead cat. This is what I've been working on is bringing the dead back to life.
So Dan tries to fight it, and he's no. Clearly it was just stunned or something. It was unconscious. And at this point, Herbert looks at him and he's can we agree at this moment in time, this cat is most certainly dead?
Yeah.
I think we can all agree.
Yeah. And they look at the cat again, and it is just mangled beyond all recognition. Mm-hmm. And so Herbert injects the cat again, and it comes back to life. It can't really do much anymore, but it twitches. Yeah. It's horrifying. This is something that does not need to be alive, and it is being forced to be alive.
Yeah, this is actually horrific, but if you can get over this, you'll get through the rest of the movie just fine. But yeah, so we got the squidgy animated remains of the cat.
And Megan happens to wander in and also sees this, and she's obviously very upset by what she sees. So she kind of storms out, and then we cut to the next day. Dan is telling the dean about this great discovery that Herbert West has made, and explains everything that he saw. And the dean is not having it. Right.
Now instead of just launching an investigation, I would think most people would, I could be wrong. I'd be all right, let's have an investigation to make sure what you're saying isn't just BS and you're pranking me. And we can get something in here. No. The dean is this is bullshit, effectively.
He's I demand a written apology.
Right. From a grown man. Well, college age man, whatever you want to call it. But he's I want a written apology from you. I'm going to revoke your student loan. Dear God, I wish that revoke my student loans, please. But and then he's and I'm just going to toss West out. He's gone. He's out.
Yeah. Yep. West is expelled. You're lucky I'm just letting you off with this warning and this apology and everything.
Yeah, but Dan, it's as good as expelling Dan because he can't afford to pay for med school.
Oh, yeah. So then we get like Dan is rolling a gurney into the morgue. Seems like an echo of the earlier scene. But this time when he gets into the morgue, turns out it's Herbert West hiding under the sheet.
Right. I love how he had his feet out just like, hey, I'm dead. This is to help sell it.
Yeah.
And as soon as he gets in the little area, he's like, all right, time to put my shoes back on.
Yeah. So, yeah, clearly after seeing the cat, like, Dan is in. And, again, this is from what we saw earlier. Like, Dan is trying to, extend life. He was resistant to accept that patient had died. So now that there's a way that maybe they can help people who do die, he's in. So they're down digging through the morgue, like looking at various bodies. And it kind of, they start lifting different sheets and like, oh, no, that guy's seriously burned. He's no good. This one won't work. And eventually they find a recently dead heart attack patient.
Yeah, John Doe.
Yep, so they're like, this is perfect. And there's no hesitation. They, just inject him with the, iconic neon green reagent that you see in all the posters and everything from this movie.
Yep. 15 cc's of reagent coming in stat.
Yeah. Meanwhile, upstairs, the dean has arrived with Megan, and he's looking for Dan.
Right. If Dan reports to work today, I want to know, why didn't he say this, the moment Dan left his office?
Yeah.
Don't let this guy come in.
But so the nurse is like, no, he's already here. He's downstairs.
In the morgue.
And he's like, no, he was supposed to be suspended. He leaves, he's like, watch her, don't let Megan leave. And he takes off to try to find Dan. And then, meanwhile, downstairs, the corpse has woken up. It has been reanimated and instantly is just violent. It's throwing stuff with super strength.
Yeah, effectively roid rage at this point, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's chucking both of them like they were ragdolls.
And then the dean arrives downstairs at the same time, but he's outside of the morgue, pounding on the door, yelling to be let in.
Well, of course, the reanimated corpse is more than happy to oblige by doing a Hulk stomp through the door onto Halsey. By the way, this isn't a regular door. This is almost a safe door. This is a solid metal door.
Yeah, this is a serious heavy door.
Right.
It kind of, if you've ever been in an industrial walk-in freezer, I think it's basically that. And, of course, a morgue would need that as well to keep in the temperature control.
Exactly.
But yeah, knocks this door on top of the dean. Which,
that doesn't kill the dean, by the way.
Yeah, which it very well could have.
Yeah, probably should have. But of course, the naked reanimated man then proceeds to just manhandle Halsey while biting his fingers off. On one hand. And, so at this point, West and Kane have kind of recovered, and they start attacking the reanimated corpse as well. And ultimately, West takes a bone saw and just shoves it into his back, through his heart. Not the correct way. Not the correct way. He definitely just, jams it and has the bone saw do a corkscrew through the body.
Yeah.
So that's fun. That's a nice little bit of gore if you're into that.
But, unfortunately, before they're able to do that, the zombie corpse has killed the dean. Yeah. But, of course, West is like, well, that's perfect. This is an even fresher body. Let's go ahead and...
That's what the problem is. The guys were dead for too long. We know this by Frankenstein. The longer you're dead, the worse you'll be.
Yeah, so let's just inject the dean. We'll reanimate him. Nobody will have to know anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He'll be fine.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Megan, there's chaos in the hospital, and Megan uses that opportunity to sneak away so that she can find Dan. And then we cut back to them reanimating the dean. He wakes up, and he is instantly a, violent monster as well.
Right.
So the time window was not the problem.
Nope. It may have something to do with that green glowy reagent. Who knows? Yeah. But the point is, at this point, our good friend, the security guard, who has spent the last couple scenes staring at Boudoir magazine, comes busting in, wanting to know what's going on here. And at that point, Halsey actually runs off into the corner and kind of cowers, which is surprising for
it's strange after kind of hulking out. He's still clearly not in his right mind, but he's not violent. And then Megan shows up around the same time, and Herbert is like, something, we don't know what's happened. The dean, he ran down here, he was crazy. He cut up this corpse, he attacked us, and then he just went and huddled in a corner. And somehow people, I mean, I guess because the dean can't defend himself, everyone's like, okay, we'll take you at your word. And the next scene is the dean like locked in a padded room in a straitjacket.
Right. By the way, that's what I love about this Herbert West. He immediately has a story no matter the situation. He is locked and loaded with something.
Oh, yeah. And he's a really interesting character because he's not charismatic at all. He's very monotone.
No, he's the opposite.
Yeah, like I would not describe him as like somebody who people would be drawn to. He's not a likable person, but he has a way with words and it works. Like even he's not charming people out of or into doing what he wants, but yet they still end up doing what he wants.
It feels like he is actually outsmarting everyone.
Yeah.
Like that's the best way. He is the guy who knows he is the smartest man in the room at all times.
Yeah. Definitely some like sociopathic tendencies where he just, he just knows the way to manipulate people. And so, yeah.
Definitely no empathy.
Not at all.
Right.
But yeah, so we see Megan standing outside of the padded room. She's worried about her father, of course. And Professor Hill's, he's there kind of creeping on Megan a little bit. But he also, is like, I think I can help. I want to do a surgery. It's kind of experimental, but I think that it will bring your father back to the way he was.
Yeah, set him right.
Yeah, and of course, even though he is a creepy dude, like she knows that he's obviously a family friend who cares about her dad and is an accomplished brain surgeon, so she agrees, like, hopefully this will help. She's still obviously a little nervous, and she heads home and finds Dan waiting for her, and he kind of tells her what actually happened.
Yeah, your dad was murdered by the other corpse.
Yeah, so like he's along for the ride with West because he wants to help people, but he's not going to go along with the dishonesty that West has to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Of course, this is terrible news for her. She kind of breaks down crying. She's really upset by this information, but she definitely believes it. I mean, I think obviously just, she trusts Dan and obviously has had kind of a bad feeling about Herbert from the beginning anyway. So yeah, she's quick to believe this pretty fantastical story. And then we cut to, West working. He's kind of continuing with his experiments and Hill shows up.
Right.
And he's like, I know what you did. Like I've figured out, I know the dean is actually
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's totally dead.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm going to have you locked up as a murderer if you don't give me all of your work, basically. I want credit for what you've done. I want your notes. I want the reagent.
Everything I did with Gruber, I'm doing that with you now. That's what's happening now.
Yep, pretty much.
And it almost seems like West is going to capitulate. He does give him, a lot of the information. He basically starts working for him. But turns out he was just doing all that so he could reach back and grab a shovel and go upside Hill's head.
Yeah.
And then after he goes upside Hill's head, he then takes the shovel and brings it down on Hill's neck.
Yep. And yells plagiarist as he chops off his head.
Jeffrey Combs has the best lines.
Oh, yeah.
Any of these. So good.
And he takes the head and he like
tries to set it up.
Yeah, he has like a little metal spike. It's almost, I don't know what it actually is, but it reminds me of like those things you see in like a diner or something that like receipts would be stuck on.
That's exactly what it is.
And he just like shoves the head onto it, kind of uses it to like stand him up.
Right.
And sets it in like this metal tray on his desk and then just injects the head with more reagent.
Right. But not only does he inject the head, he's like, hey, listen, I've got a perfectly good head here, but I've also got a perfectly good body there. Let's see what happens when I inject them independently of each other.
And yeah, sure enough, they both wake up. Mm-hmm. So the head starts talking to West and he's like hissing through like his damaged vocal cords. And, it's like, West, you bastard.
Yep.
And while West is paying attention to the head, the body
does a sneaky and comes up behind him and just slams his head on the desk.
Yep.
KOing him. That's honestly one of the most hilarious parts of this movie is when you see that the body just grab him and just will go bonk on the.
And it's like a perfect, so like that's exactly what West did to Hill, and he just does it back to him immediately after it. It's a very quick turnaround on that karma.
Yeah, you would think he would be paying more attention to that one, but
Meanwhile, Kane and Meg have found out that Hill actually lobotomized the dean.
He has this drill, this laser drill.
Yeah, he kind of is developing this new technique of lobotomy. So now the dean is sort of just a vegetable, basically. He's not like catatonic, he's still moving, but at this point it seems that there's really no way that he's going to recover after losing this part of his brain, basically.
Yeah.
We cut back to West waking up, and he finds that Hill has stolen his serum and his
notes. Not just the serum, everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
His lab is just stripped bare.
Right.
And then Dan shows up, and basically they sort of fill each other in on what they've learned while they've been apart. They run through all of the stuff that the dean's been lobotomized, and Hill...
I killed Hill, I reanimated him immediately after. He knocked me out and stole everything,
Yeah. Dan also mentions, Hill's obsessed with Megan, so there's something going on here. Then we cut to Hill with his body back at the hospital.
And the medical dummy head.
Yeah, we saw the model earlier, I think when he was telling Megan what he was going to do, and it's like this...
to her father.
It's like half like a regular face, the other half's just like a skull.
Peeled away, yeah. It's like part of it had been peeled away. But yeah, so he has the medical mask and the hat on covering that, and he's carrying his bag, and he slinks, gets up to the wall and just slides along the wall to the door so that the security guard, who's obviously oblivious, lets him through. He walks past him, and the security guard then, after Hill's already in the room, he's like, "Dr. Hill, is that you?" And of course, hearing from the back, one of the better gags is, "Right, yeah, it's me, I'm Dr. Hill."
Yeah. And whoever is in that, whoever's doing the body is the physical comedy there is so good too.
It's so good.
This weird, awkward body that can't see, but still manages to get around pretty well. Just the way that it's acting is just so good.
And lucky for that guard who's been reading Boudoir, it's now break time.
Yeah. And so meanwhile, in the office, the body opens a refrigerator and finds, blood transfusion bags, and puts the head back in a tray and squirts the blood into the tray, and he I guess drinks it up through his
neck.
Yeah.
It's like he's absorbing it like a tree.
Yeah.
But of course he doesn't just put blood in there. He's got to put a little reagent to top him off.
Yep.
To keep him going.
Yeah, and so then it cuts away back to Dan, who is going to check in on Meg. He's worried about her, wants to make sure she's safe, but he doesn't mention that he's worried because Hill's on the loose.
Right. Hill's a zombie now, effectively, or at least Hill's now 2 threats instead of 1.
Yeah. So, yeah, he doesn't mention that, so they kind of talk, and, she admits, she's still kind of angry at him for everything that they did, but she's like, I tried to hate you, but I just can't.
And, of course, that's when the dad zombie busts in, formerly Dean Halsey.
Yeah.
And takes out Dan. Not permanently, just enough that he could, he'll wake up later. And then he kidnaps Megan for Dr. Hill. Or Hillhead.
Yeah. Then we cut back, and Hill's body's got the laser thing, the drill, and is... just lobotomizing all these corpses.
These corpses.
In the morgue. And the dean shows up with Megan. So, obviously the dean would not be, serving up his daughter to Hill, except that this lobotomy has kind of turned him into a more traditional style zombie, from the, white zombie era zombie, where it's a person under a reanimated corpse under the control of someone else.
Yeah, well, it also feels like Hill has almost a telepathy over the other reanimated to a degree.
Yeah, which, I mean, they never really explain. I guess it's something to do with the reagent that allows this sort of hive mind kind of thing.
Yeah, and, of course, he's expressing the control over it, so he gets to do what he wants. But this is when her former father strips her naked.
Yeah, so if we didn't realize that he was not under his, own control... he lays her on a table, like a medical slab, basically, in the morgue, and, rips off all of her clothes and puts her, she's, next to Hill's head.
Right.
He's on the table.
Making very nasty and suggestive motions and sounds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, Hill's body and Dean Halsey kind of work together to like strap her down to the gurney or whatever.
And then you get to find out her true hair color because she is completely naked at this point.
Yeah. This is like, full nudity here.
Yeah.
And before anything else happens, we cut back real quick to West waking up Dan. And they're like, we gotta hurry. We gotta get to the hospital to help Meg. So they leave, and then we cut back to this really creepy scene where like Hill's head is,
oh gosh,
he's controlling his separated body, and the body is like groping Meg.
Yeah.
And then like ultimately picks up the head and like goes to like put it between her legs. Mm-hmm. To like,
with the tongue licking, of course.
Yeah. So like to further this sexual assault that's got to be one of the weirdest sexual assaults in any movie ever.
By the way, like can we take a step back? Like I don't want to focus on this too much because this may be inappropriate. But like mad props to Barbara Crampton for basically getting like being okay or not being okay, like being willing to be felt up for this movie. Yeah. Like I mean, gosh, like it didn't need that.
Yeah,
I don't think it needed it, but I mean, I hope it was consensual. I hope she definitely agreed to it, wasn't coerced, because even he sucks on her breast.
Yeah, it's especially considering this is a definitely older man, and it's a strange situation. I think she definitely was like in. I think I remember hearing something that like she kind of like as she got older, she kind of wished she had not done the scene. But at the time, she was on board and stuff. So it's not like a, kind of director mistreating actresses kind of thing that we see, occasionally happen. Barbara Crampton and Stuart Gordon, the director of this, had like a very close relationship and worked together for many, many years. Gordon actually just died. They rejoined for their next movie, even From Beyond. And I think they worked together off and on. I think she was in Castle Freak.
Yes.
But then, Gordon died just a few years ago, and, Crampton like wrote like a really long, really nice, thoughtful thing about, the passing of her friend and stuff. So they maintained a very close relationship for the entirety of Gordon's life. So no bad blood there. So that's good.
Yeah.
But yes, this scene is super unpleasant, and thankfully West and Dan show up right before things would have gotten even more unpleasant, kind of put a stop to things. There's kind of commotion there. They're fighting.
Well, as a matter of fact, West comes in and he's like, I didn't just come here without a plan. And Hill, of course, responds with, well, I had one too. And boom, that's when all the corpses reanimate.
Yeah, so now everybody in the morgue has woken up.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now we got all these like nude zombies kind of stumbling around, attacking. Mm-hmm. They mainly all head towards West. Obviously, Hill and West have an antagonistic relationship.
Yeah. And of course, at this point, while they're trying to hold down West, that's when Dr. Hill decides to use his surgical laser drill to try to dispatch our good doctor, or not so good doctor.
Yeah. Megan's cut free by Dan at the same time that this is going on, and something about like Megan, she kind of like yells for her dad, and like it sort of breaks the Dean free of like
Hill's control.
Yeah, it's sort of like paternal instinct overrides this sort of like zombie mentality that he's had.
Right.
And he attacks.
He goes after Hill.
Yeah. So he like grabs Hill's head and is like squeezing it. Meanwhile, West then gets free and goes and attacks the body. Mm-hmm. And
knocks it through the door.
Yeah, and he like decides to give it an overdose of reagent.
Yeah, I love how he says overdose as he's carrying 2 large syringes full of the reagent.
And that causes some weird stuff to happen. So he like injects him with two syringes, which causes the internal organs of the body to
animate,
to come to. Yeah, they have their own sort of life.
They burst out, latch around his neck, and like start trying to pull him into the cavity. like it's its own mouth.
Yeah, so there's like this sort of tentacle kind of quality to them, and they're strangling him. And then the dean sort of like tries to distract the rest of the zombies, kind of like calls them to him and is sort of fighting them so that Dan and Megan can make their escape.
Which, of course, Dan is apparently reluctant to do, but he hangs around for a little bit longer than he should.
Yeah, I think, he sees like West in danger, but like I think he realizes like, West is beyond saving, and, West kind of did this to himself. So, and, obviously his priority is Megan. So they kind of run out of the morgue and...
Oh, yeah. So the dad zombie gets torn apart, literally limb by limb.
Yeah.
As Wes tosses the last of his reagent to Dan. He's like, continue my research. And if Dan was smart, he'd be like, hell no, I'm not doing that. But, of course, he takes the bag. And they do run down the hall. They run to the elevator. So it's all good. Everything's fine. We're good. Except for Megan is hanging out right in the opening before the elevator shuts. A zombie comes busting in, grabs her by the throat, starts choking her. What does our man Dan do? He fights it for a little bit, sure. But then he decides, wait a second, I'm going to take the time to go get me an axe. So he lets her be choked for about another 10, 15 seconds, gets his axe, comes back, chops up the zombie that's choking Megan, and tries to save her. Well, turns out in that amount of time that he could have actually been doing more stuff, she's likely to die.
Yeah.
She's not having a good time, so they have to take her to the ER. I'm sorry. Dan actually begins chest compressions at this time. So we're mimicking the beginning of the movie at this point, where he's like, okay, I've got to save Megan. I've got to save Megan,
Yeah, it's like a perfect sort of cyclical thing where like, we start that way, we end this way, where he's, now even more desperate because this isn't just a patient. This is, this is his love, and he won't give up. He keeps going.
Nope.
And
we defibrillate, or you know what? He shocks her. Defibs her. There you go.
Yeah.
And anyway, and continues on with the chest compressions, but it doesn't work. Megan dies.
Yeah, and so eventually everybody kind of, they all kind of walk out one by one, leaving Dan to mourn, and then he's like, oh, wait, I do have this bag.
I do have this reagent. Nothing could go wrong here.
And so, then the way it ends is so great. Like, so he puts the needle into Megan, and then it, like, cuts to black,
except for the reagent.
Yeah, you just see, like, this green syringe that then like empties itself out, and then you hear Megan scream, and then credits.
Yes, so good. Kind of an abrupt ending, but also pretty well earned, I would say.
Yeah, it's like a perfect abrupt ending, just because you got the call back to the beginning of the movie, and of course you got this part where like Dan, the good doctor who's really genuinely wanting to help and not, just the mad scientist, is driven to become the mad scientist by the death of the person that he loves.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so
that's when he goes to fight death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like, it's just such a perfect, and like it's such a perfect movie considering like all these actors are young. Like, I think they're in
their prime. Yeah, effectively.
Most of these actors, it's like their first movie or their first like feature. It's Stuart Gordon's first it's his directorial debut, and I mean, it's still just like a classic. Like, I mean,
it holds up.
It really does.
Yeah, like even the effects, like there's a little bit of age to them, but it's mostly a nice patina. It's the gory bits are wet enough that it stands to the test of time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's, because like there's no CGI, so there's no kind of like aging there, like know. And even like, I mean, something as simple as like the reagent, it's like it glows. It's just like this bright green liquid that glows, and it's like actual just glow stick goo that they like cut open glow sticks, and so like it's legitimately glowing on screen. They're not like, doing that with like After Effects or anything.
Yeah, it still looks cool though.
Yeah, it looks so good.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know that I can fully endorse this movie just because there was no science wheel, and definitely no flappy bats. Okay, but it's still a great time.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's one of those that I feel like it's pretty high up on the like rewatched list for me. Like I can't tell you how many times, but I've definitely watched this a lot of times.
It is on my yearly Halloween rotation.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Let me ask you this: I wasn't able to do the research on this, Anthony. You can tell me when Dan was doing the chest compressions on Megan. Near the end, not the very end, but right before that, whenever they were in the elevator, like was that actually Barbara Crampton or was that a dummy? Because man, he was hammering that down like he should have broke some ribs if that was actually Barbara.
I'm not sure. I'd imagine it might have been a little bit of both. I'm trying to remember exactly how it plays out, but I'm sure that there was some creative camera work and you know. Her when it needed to be and not her when it needed to not be.
That makes sense because part of it was shot from her head, especially when he goes down the hardest. So obviously there was an actress's face there. You still see the movement, but yeah, something to look forward to or look into.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I think that covers it. And like we say, you know, follow us on all the socials, you know,
Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the things.
Yep, at the Frankencast on all the places. Also,
all interaction is good interaction, effectively.
Yep, we'd love to hear from you. And, you know, like all the rates and reviews wherever you listen, those obviously help so that more people can find us. And, you know, if you've got nice things to say, we'd love to hear from them. If you don't, let us know. You know, we'd definitely be interested to hear more. You know, we're not above criticism.
No, we believe in improving ourselves. So, you know, as long as it's not just a stream of profanities, we're good.
Yep. So I think that covers it. And of course, I don't think we even really have to say, but next week we'll obviously be continuing Re-Animator. So we'll be doing Bride of Re-Animator.
Wait, this sounds like it may be Re-Animator Month. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, it's very exciting. Yep, so join us next week for Bride of Re-Animator.
And as always, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.